Sometimes life places you at a crossroads so quiet you almost miss it. A moment so ordinary on the surface that it feels harmless, yet one small decision inside it can ripple outward and change everything. This is one of those moments. It began with a blind date, a single father, and a woman who walked through a door holding the small hand of her child. What followed was unplanned, unremarkable to anyone else in the room, and unforgettable to the people who lived it. Before the story truly begins, take just a second to support Storyverse. If stories like this move you, if they remind you of the good still quietly happening in the world, please subscribe, like this video, and leave a comment below. Your support helps us continue sharing stories that prove kindness still matters. Mark sat alone at a small corner table inside a modest coffee shop tucked along a quiet street in Ohio. The place wasn't busy, just the low murmur of conversation, the hiss of steaming milk, the comforting smell of roasted beans lingering in the air. He checked his watch again, then again, realizing he'd already done it 3 times in the last 5 minutes. He sighed softly and rested his hands around his coffee cup, though he hadn't taken a sip. It had been more than 3 years since Mark had gone on a date. 3 long years since his life had been turned upside down by a sudden loss he still struggled to put into words. Ever since his wife passed away, unexpectedly and far too young, his world had shrunk into something smaller and more fragile. His days revolved around work deadlines, school drop-offs, permission slips, grocery lists, and bedtime stories. Everything he did, every decision he made, was filtered through one person. His 7-year-old son, Noah. Being both mom and dad hadn't been something Mark had planned for. He loved his son fiercely, completely, but there were nights when the house felt unbearably quiet after Noah fell asleep. Nights when loneliness crept in, whispering questions he didn't have answers to. This blind date hadn't even been his idea. His sister, tired of watching him retreat further into himself, had created a dating profile for him without asking. She told him it was time. Time to live again, time to remember he was more than just surviving. Mark resisted at first. The thought of dating felt wrong, almost disloyal. But loneliness has a way of wearing you down slowly, and eventually, after weeks of gentle pushing and late-night doubts, he agreed to meet someone named Emily. He hadn't known what to expect. He certainly hadn't expected what happened next. The bell above the coffee shop door chimed softly, and Mark instinctively looked up. That's when he froze. Emily walked inside, scanning the room, but she wasn't alone. She was holding the hand of a little girl who couldn't have been more than 4 years old. The child had soft curls bouncing around her face, a pink ribbon tied slightly crooked in her hair. In her other hand, she clutched a well-loved stuffed bunny, its fur worn thin from years of comfort. For a brief moment, Mark's mind struggled to catch up with what his eyes were seeing. His first thought came unfiltered and instinctive. She brought her kid on a blind date. Emily hesitated just inside the doorway, her grip tightening protectively around the little hand beside her. She looked nervous, her shoulders tense, her expression caught somewhere between hope and apology. Her eyes finally landed on Mark, and she recognized him instantly. Taking a breath, she guided the little girl toward his table. "Hi, Mark," she asked softly, her voice uncertain. Mark stood up quickly, nearly knocking his chair back. "Yeah, that's me," he said, forcing a smile he hoped didn't look as awkward as it felt. Emily didn't sit down right away. "I'm so sorry," she said, the words tumbling out before he could respond. "My babysitter canceled at the last minute. I almost didn't come. I really did, but I didn't want to just disappear without explaining." The little girl pressed herself halfway behind Emily's leg, peeking out at Mark with wide, curious eyes. Something inside Mark tightened unexpectedly. A memory surfaced without warning. Noah at that age, clinging to his leg the first time Mark tried to leave him with a new babysitter after his wife passed. The fear, the confusion, the way life seemed to fall apart at the worst moments. Emily swallowed and met Mark's eyes. "If this makes you uncomfortable, I understand if you want to leave." Truly. Mark glanced at the empty chair across from him, then back at the small child gripping her mother's leg. He paused, the moment stretching just long enough to matter. Then he softened his voice. "What's her name?" he asked. Emily blinked, clearly not expecting that question. "Oh, this is Lily." Mark crouched down slowly so he was at Lily's level. "Hi, Lily, I'm Mark." Lily studied him seriously for a second, then tilted her head. "Do you have cookies?" she asked bluntly. Mark laughed before he could stop himself, the tension breaking like a snapped string. "Not on me," he said honestly. "But I think this place might." Lily's face brightened instantly, as if the world had just become a little safer. That small exchange shifted something in the air. Emily relaxed just enough to sit down, guiding Lily into the chair beside her. They ordered hot chocolate for Lily and coffee for themselves. Mark pulled out his phone and scrolled through his photos, stopping on one he loved. He turned the screen toward Lily. "That's my son," he said. "His name's Noah. He's 7. He loves video games and pancakes." Emily leaned in, surprised. "You have a child?" "Yeah," Mark nodded. "Just me and him." Something changed then. It was subtle, but real. Emily's shoulders dropped, the tension easing from her posture. The guarded look in her eyes softened. As they talked, Lily chimed in often, asking questions, making observations only a child could make. Each time she interrupted, Emily apologized instinctively. Sorry about that." Mark didn't mind. He listened as Lily explained her favorite cartoon, showed him her bunny, told him she didn't like the dark because it made her room feel too big. Mark listened the same way he listened to Noah. Fully, patiently, like what she was saying mattered. Emily noticed. She watched him closely, the way he didn't sigh or glance at his phone, the way he responded to Lily with genuine interest. "I'm not used to this," Emily admitted quietly at one point. "Most people don't stick around when they realize I come as a package deal." Mark stirred his coffee slowly. "Some of the best things in life come that way," he said. Emily looked at him, truly looked at him, as if she was seeing something she hadn't expected to find. She told him her story then. How Lily's father had left before Lily could even form memories of him. How Emily worked 2 jobs and still went to bed every night worried she wasn't doing enough. How dating felt impossible because she refused to pretend Lily wasn't part of her life. "I promised myself Lily would never feel like a burden," Emily said, her voice trembling despite her efforts to stay composed. Mark thought of Noah, of the nights he lay awake wondering if he was failing him. "She's not a burden," Mark said firmly. "She's a blessing." Emily's eyes filled, and she turned her face away quickly, embarrassed by the emotion. By the end of the date, Lily had grown sleepy, curling into Emily's lap, her bunny tucked under her chin. Mark paid the bill quietly, not making a scene of it. Outside, the air had cooled, evening settling in. Gently, Emily stood by her car, hesitant. "Thank you," she said. "Not just for tonight, for being kind." Mark smiled. Kindness is easy when you see yourself in someone else. As they said goodbye, Lily tugged on Mark's sleeve. "Will you come back?" she asked. Mark knelt down again, meeting her eyes. "I'd like that," he said. And in that moment, none of them knew how much that simple choice would matter. A week passed more quickly than Mark expected. Life returned to its familiar rhythm of school mornings, packed lunches, work emails, and evening routines, yet something subtle had changed beneath the surface. He caught himself thinking about that coffee shop more than once. About the way Emily's voice softened when she talked about Lily. About the way Lily's eyes lit up at the mention of cookies. About how natural it had felt to simply stay. He hadn't told Noah about the date, not yet. It felt too soon, too fragile to explain something he didn't fully understand himself. But when Mark reached out to Emily to ask if she'd like to meet again, her response came quickly. She'd love to. This time, Mark suggested the park. Neutral ground, open space, no expectations. Emily agreed, and this time there would be no surprises. When Saturday arrived, the sky stretched wide and blue, the kind of gentle afternoon that made everything feel possible. Mark parked near the playground and took a steadying breath before getting out of the car. Noah hopped out beside him, energetic and curious, a baseball cap pulled low over his eyes. "Who are we meeting again?" Noah asked. "Just some friends," Mark replied carefully. Emily and her daughter, Lily. Lily's the girl with the bunny, right? Noah asked. Mark smiled. Yeah, that's her. Emily arrived moments later. Lily spotted Mark instantly and waved with both hands, nearly dropping her bunny in excitement. Noah watched closely, unsure at first, but within minutes the two kids were running toward the swings together, laughter echoing across the park as if they'd known each other for years. Mark and Emily settled onto a nearby bench, the comfortable distance between them shrinking naturally. For a while, they didn't say much. They just watched the kids play, the way parents often do, quietly cataloging joy and safety. It felt easy. That surprised both of them. I was nervous about today, Emily admitted eventually. Mark nodded. Me too. First impressions matter even more when kids are involved. Emily smiled faintly. Lily doesn't connect with people easily. The fact that she remembered you meant something. Mark watched Noah push Lily on the swing, carefully, earnestly. He gets that from his mom, he said. She always believed people deserved patience before judgment. Emily glanced at him. You talk about her kindly. Mark swallowed. Some days it's easier than others, he admitted. But I want Noah to grow up remembering love, not loss. The afternoon unfolded slowly. The kids raced, climbed, argued briefly over whose turn it was, then resolved it without intervention. Mark and Emily talked about work, about exhaustion, about the strange guilt that came with trying to find happiness again after disappointment. Neither pretended life was easy. They didn't need to. When it was time to leave, Noah asked if Lily could come over sometime. Emily laughed softly, surprised by how natural it sounded. Maybe soon, she said. Over the next few weeks, their lives began to overlap in small, cautious ways. Playdates turned into shared dinners. Conversations stretched longer. The kids grew comfortable in each other's presence, as if sensing something steady forming beneath the surface. Mark noticed how Emily never rushed Lily through her feelings. How she listened even when tired. Emily noticed how Mark never spoke over Noah, how he knelt to meet his son's eyes when correcting him. There were moments of doubt, of course. Nights when Emily questioned whether blending lives was fair to either child. Nights when Mark worried about inviting change into a home that had finally found balance. But kindness kept choosing for them when fear tried to speak louder. One evening, after the kids had fallen asleep during a movie night, Emily sat quietly on Mark's couch, staring at the muted television. I'm scared, she admitted. Mark nodded. Me too. Scared of messing this up, she continued. Scared of hurting them. Mark leaned forward, elbows on his knees. We don't have to be perfect, he said. We just have to be honest. Emily looked at him then, really looked, and nodded. Months passed. Slowly, gently, their routines blended. Backpacks lined up by the door. Extra toothbrushes in the bathroom. Shoes by the wrong beds. It wasn't seamless. There were hard days. But there was laughter too. And warmth. And something neither of them had expected to feel again so soon. Hope. One evening, as Mark tucked Noah into bed, his son looked up at him sleepily. Dad. Yeah, buddy, I like when Lily and Emily come over. Mark smiled. Me too. In another room, Emily tucked Lily in, brushing curls from her forehead. Mommy. Yes, sweetheart. Mark is nice. Emily's chest tightened. Yes, he is. The truth settled quietly over all of them. This wasn't about romance alone. It was about choosing understanding instead of judgment. Staying instead of walking away. Showing up, even when it was uncomfortable. And none of it would have happened if Mark had made a different choice that first night. If he'd stood up, apologized politely, and left. Instead, he stayed. And in staying, he changed more than just a moment. Time has a way of moving quietly when something feels right. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't rush. It simply settles in and becomes part of the rhythm of your days. That's how it happened for them. Weeks turned into months, and without anyone formally deciding it, two separate lives slowly began to feel like one shared path. Mark no longer felt that hollow pause when he unlocked the front door at night. The house wasn't always quiet anymore. There were more voices, more footsteps, more reminders that life was happening again. Emily found herself breathing easier in moments she used to carry alone. The weight she'd grown used to bearing didn't disappear, but it felt lighter when shared. Lily and Noah adjusted in the way children often do, with fewer questions and more acceptance than adults expect. They argued over toys and television shows. They built blanket forts and raced down hallways. They learned each other's routines, each other's moods. Slowly, trust took root. One afternoon, while Emily folded laundry in Mark's living room, Lily sat cross-legged on the floor coloring beside Noah. Without looking up, Lily said casually, "Do you think Mark will stay?" Emily froze for just a second. She knelt beside her daughter. "Stay how, sweetheart?" Lily shrugged. "Like how you stayed." Emily swallowed, choosing her words carefully. "I think he wants to," she said. Lily nodded, satisfied, and returned to her drawing. Emily sat there for a long moment afterward, realizing how deeply children sense uncertainty even when adults try to hide it. That night, after the kids were asleep, Emily and Mark sat together at the kitchen table, the house quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator. "Lily asked me if you're staying," Emily said softly. Mark looked down at his hands. "That scares me a little," he admitted. "Not because I don't want to. Because I don't want to promise something I can't honor." Emily nodded. "I feel the same." Mark met her eyes. "But I do know this. I'm not walking away." Emily exhaled, the tension she'd been holding releasing slowly. Neither of them rushed to label what they were building. They didn't need to. It showed itself in small ways. In grocery lists written for 4 instead of 2. In school pickup schedules coordinated without discussion. In the way Noah began calling Emily when he needed help with homework. In the way Lily reached for Mark's hand without thinking. There were difficult conversations too. About grief that still surfaced unexpectedly. About guilt. About fear of repeating old mistakes. Mark talked about his wife openly now, not with the raw pain of before, but with respect and honesty. Emily listened without jealousy, understanding that love doesn't erase what came before. One evening, while the kids played in the yard, Emily watched Mark patiently teaching Noah how to throw a football. Lily sat nearby, Bunny tucked under her arm, watching intently. Mark noticed and tossed the ball gently toward her. She squealed with delight when she caught it. Emily felt tears rise unexpectedly. Not from sadness, but from the overwhelming realization that something she'd once believed impossible was unfolding right in front of her. Later that night, she admitted it. "I never imagined this," she said. Mark smiled. "Me neither. But I'm glad we didn't let fear decide for us." Seasons changed. Summer faded into fall. Jackets appeared by the door. School routines shifted. One evening, during a simple dinner of spaghetti and garlic bread, Noah suddenly spoke up. "Are we a family?" The question hung in the air. Mark and Emily exchanged a glance, neither startled, but both aware of the weight of the moment. Mark set his fork down. "What do you think?" he asked gently. Noah shrugged. "It feels like it." Lily nodded enthusiastically, sauce on her chin. Emily smiled through tears. Mark reached across the table, placing his hand over Emily's. "I think family is about showing up," he said. "And we're doing that." Noah grinned. Lily raised her bunny like it was a vote. In that moment, nothing was officially declared, but everything was understood. Life wasn't perfect after that. It never is. There were setbacks, misunderstandings, and moments when exhaustion tested patience. But kindness had become their foundation. Understanding their habit, love their choice, and it all traced back to a single decision made in a quiet coffee shop. A choice not to walk away. Years later, Mark would sometimes think back to that evening, to the sound of the door chime, to the sight of Emily standing there with Lily's hand in hers. He would wonder how close he'd come to missing all of this. Emily would think about it too, about how easily things could have gone differently. How easily rejection could have reinforced every fear she'd carried. Instead, one man had seen her child not as an inconvenience, but as a person worth knowing. And that changed everything. If this story reminds us of anything, it's this. You never truly know what someone is carrying when they step into your life. The weight behind their smile. The courage behind their apology. But kindness, real and quiet, has a way of opening doors we didn't even know were closed. Sometimes it changes a moment. Sometimes it changes a path. And sometimes, it changes a family. Today, wherever you are, choose kindness. You never know whose life you might be gently transforming without ever realizing it.